All right, everybody, welcome here to week 8. We're kind of shifting back to a topic that's come up a little bit, and that's Buddhism. We've seen the role of Buddhism in Japan in various ways, but now we can kind of, I think, put it together a little bit better. Or this week is talked about, the history of Buddhism, spread of Buddhism, and Japanese Buddhism. But before we get into that, thank you all for doing your tea ceremonies. That was hopefully, one part of, hopefully, if you've learned about Japanese culture, there's an appreciation. And a lot of people mention this in their tea ceremonies. There's an appreciation for taking moments and enjoying nature and serenity and peace, and just sort of reflecting. And the tea ceremony is specifically for that. So, thank you to everybody who took some time out of their busy lives and weeks. I know everyone's busy, but if you don't take time to sort of step back and reflect, I think you're missing out. So, and I think that, hopefully taking a Japanese culture class, you can build an appreciation for that. And actually really applies very much to Buddhism as well. This idea of mindfulness and meditating and kind of bringing yourself in, reflecting is very much embedded into Buddhism as well as Shintoism. And are very much elements of Japanese culture. So, like I said, this week, we talked about Buddhism, and I know that some of the lecture is not specifically about Japanese Buddhism, but it's hard to talk about Japanese Buddhism without understanding what Buddhism is and where it comes from, and to realize that, Buddhism came to Japan about 1,000 years after it was founded. So the first lecture is just sort of a background of Buddhism, the main tenets of the Four Noble Truths, and who the Buddha is and how he came to be. And then somehow, right, we got to talk about how Buddhism goes from India all the way to Japan, via up, and I talk about Gandhara and then into China, and how Buddhism, this idea of Mahayana Buddhism, emerges with its own features. So we talked about that, and then when it comes into Japan, like sort of two major branches of Buddhism comes to Japan. One called Pure Land, which sort of focuses on these bodhisattvas that will, if you pray to them or just say their name over and over again, you will you can achieve enlightenment, or it's beneficial to you. And then the other one that through this sort of Bodhidharma Chan Buddhism of Japan, this idea of Zen Buddhism, which I think is a lot of people maybe are a little more familiar with the context of Japan. Zen Buddhism is very much a part of that world. And in Zen Buddhism, the idea there is that you don't need to you don't need to spend your entire life reading Buddhist texts or do all these really fancy rituals in order to kind of be a better person and ultimately achieve enlightenment, which is the goal here. But you can do it spontaneously through concerted effort, through things like meditation, focusing on the day-to-day life, appreciating nature, making gardens, things like that. So I put a couple videos, some readings about Zen Buddhism, some videos about Zen Buddhism, that I thought, that I think help explain what that is in a little more detail. So, if you want to meditate, I gave a video on like how to do Zazen, the Buddhist meditation, Zen Buddhist meditation. So however if you want to try it out, go for it. I think it's another thing to do to help sort of carve out a little bit of time during your day or your week to reset is really what meditation is all about. So yeah, that's about my ideas there. The other video I do, there's one on Amida, and it's just the chanting of the name Amida, Namo Amida Butsu, and that's really kind of that, and you can kind of see how melodic it is, and if you listen to it for a while, you can see how that would put you in the space to think about, to connect with nature and the world and samsara and all these other concepts that are there in Buddhism. And then this week's assignment is just a kind of a short quiz. It's really just sort of a review of the course materials. You don't need to, in fact, please don't use things off the internet. If you do, I won't count it. So just, use the course materials. It's an open note quiz. You have an hour. So go through the lectures and the materials, and then you can keep them open as you go through the quiz. It's open note, so not a problem. You have an hour to take it. So, and it's all sort of really short answer. It should be pretty straightforward. Just as long as you've gone through materials, it should be. Just kind of show me that you kind of understand Buddhism and some elements of Japanese Buddhism. I think that's it. Great. Have a good rest of your week.